No, it's in the name of Angelina Mundy at 311 Cedar Avenue. I'm at Langhorne. The correspondence is basically raising questions about the attorneys that are being paid to represent Ms. Hoyer and the actions that are proceeding against her.
Okay.
And her appointment. There are essentially 4 questions in this letter. The first one is whether Ms. Hoyer is entitled to a taxpayer-funded attorney.
Mr. Manning, are
Yes.
you Ms. Mundy's attorney?
No, I am not.
Well, perhaps Ms. Mundy could bring these questions herself. Is she here or in the audience?
I do not know Ms. Monday. As I said, I received this correspondence on Friday.
Well, in what capacity are you acting?
Well, it's addressed to me as an auditor of the township.
You're an auditor of Middletown
Yes, I am an
Township?
auditor of Middletown Township, and as an auditor of Middletown Township, when I receive correspondence from a resident of the township, I feel I have an obligation to respond to it.
And how many other correspondences have you received in that capacity,
This
Mr.
is
Manning?
my first.
Okay.
Mr. Manning, as you well know, the township appoints a CPA firm as the auditing firm, and they are vested with the investigatory authority during the course of the annual audit. I would advise you to turn this over to that appointed firm, and they will review it as a part of their audit of the 2008 annual budget of the township. That's the appropriate manner under the second-class township code. That auditor is charged with the duty to investigate any appropriations that may or may not be legal and to make any surcharges that the code would authorize. So I would encourage you to turn that over to the township's
Okay.
auditors so they can include that in the review of the books for 2008.
Now, 2 of the questions do have to deal with the initial vote to agree to pay for the attorney. Would they qualify as something under the guise of the auditor?
If you're questioning the legality of the expenditure, that's within the purview of the audit, and that would be something that the auditor would then seek appropriate legal opinion as to whether or not it is or is not authorized.
Well, may I read you the question, and you can tell me whether it qualifies for it, because I do want to make sure these go to the appropriate people.
The auditor of the township, the CPA firm, is the appropriate person to investigate any alleged financial
Even if it
expenditures
is
that are or are not
Even if it is a
authorized.
legal question whether or not a conflict of interest was occurred.
The question of whether or not an expenditure is or is not appropriate, which is, I think, the purview within which you brought the question, that is to be reviewed by the township's auditor during the 2008 audit. That would be correct. If
Okay.
there's a belief that there's a conflict of interest, the auditor can refer it out to other agencies, myself as the township's legal authority, or the Ethics Commission if they believe that there's some conflict of interest issue. But that's within the purview of the auditors when they do the audit of the 2008 books. I would encourage you to give a copy to Mr. Stepnoski, and we can include it with the financial records that are turned over to the auditors next year.
Absolutely. As I said, I only received it on Friday. I haven't had an opportunity to make copies because I was away for the weekend, but I will make a copy as soon as I can and bring it over to Mr. Stepnoski.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr.
And
Chairman.
Mr. Manning, I just have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
Are you a committee person in
No, I am-
Middletown Township?
No, I am not.
Okay. But you're active with the Republican Party in Middletown Township?
I do work the polls for
And
the
are
Republican Party.
you're employed in Senator Tommy Tomlinson's
That
office?
is correct.
And are you aware of the facts of the case about which you're questioning and these legal fees?
I am aware of that there are questions on whether or not the vacancy board, the procedures that the vacancy board followed were appropriate, were
Are you
open.
aware of how the case was brought?
No, I am not.
So then you're testifying here, Mr. Manning, that you are not aware that Messrs. Leonhauser and Caro brought this lawsuit against the township of Middletown and the people of Middletown?
I was aware that there were 2 separate lawsuits or my understanding is that there are 2 separate lawsuits involved. There is one lawsuit where I believe there are 3 residents questioning the procedures that were used to appoint Ms. Hoyer to the vacancy, and a case brought by Mr. Leonhauser and Caro on whether or not Ms. Hoyer has the requirements. I'm not sure this particulars, but I am aware that there is
Yes, that's known as a quo warranto
Okay.
case. So, Mr. Manning, you just stated that you weren't aware how the case was brought against the people of Middletown Township, but yet you seem to have some inside knowledge of this case.
I am aware of it from reading it in the newspaper, sir.
Okay, and you
It
have...
hasn't been in the newspaper.
I'm sorry, then maybe it has been in
It
conversations.
has
I don't
not
know.
been in the newspaper, so
I do not know. Maybe it has been in conversations with people, maybe it has been in the newspaper. My recollection is
It has
having
not
read
been
from
in
it
the
in the
newspaper.
newspaper, but I'm not
It
sure.
hasn't been in the newspaper.
And Mr. Manning, you claim that you have no knowledge or association with Ms. Angelina Monday, other than this letter that you received?
That is correct.
And so you've had no phone conversation or